I've moved to Chicago and I don't eat ketchup on my hot dogs anymore.
Thank God. Thank God.
Hallelujah.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Jeffers, ChicagoJazz.com, episode 97 here at Johnny O's right in Bridgeport. We have Denise Thimes here with us today. We are going to talk about her incredible career. Also, she has a gig coming up at Winter's Jazz Club Friday and Saturday night, March 16th and 17th, so don't go away. We are back here live at Johnny O's, 35th and Morgan. Of course, wonderful hot dogs, wonderful fries. We're talking jazz. What better way to talk about jazz than with hot dogs and fries? And you actually have ginger ales,
Yes.
kind of like a high-end ginger ale here at Johnny O's. Can't beat that.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you made it to the show. I've
Thank
heard
you,
your
Mike.
name
Thank you
for
for having
many
me.
years, and the fact that you're playing at Winter's Jazz Club Friday and Saturday night, two shows, 7:30 and 9:30 p.m. Of course, all the information at wintersjazzclub.com.
Yep.
How about that for some plugging?
Yeah, that's some plugging.
So before we get into talking about the shows and talking about all of the different things, you have a lot of stuff coming up. Why don't we just kick it off for the people that don't know your background and maybe who you even are, because you're new to the Chicago area,
Yes,
not
I
to the
am.
jazz world, but the
Yeah.
Chicago area. Why don't we talk a little bit about how you grew up and where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And I was blessed to have a very nurturing and doting mother who was a housewife. And my dad is the legendary, iconic radio pioneer, Lou Father Times.
Ah, okay.
And he's, my dad was in radio for about 50 years. And so I was exposed to all types of music.
Yeah.
Right? And years ago, I had to have an operation on my vocal cords. Decided I wasn't going to do the gospel music anymore. I'm going to do jazz. And so that's how I started off into listening to all of the jazz great vocalists. And I've been doing it ever since now for about 25 years.
Wow. So actually, you probably were just surrounded by music.
Absolutely.
And probably because your father was a legendary DJ, right?
Yes.
He was probably surrounded by a lot of the artists.
Yes, he
So you
was.
probably met a lot of these incredible legendary artists over the years.
I really did. Aretha Franklin came to our house about 3 times.
Wow.
Sam and Dave. Mel. Well, there was a group called Mel and Tim, and there's a gentleman that was pretty much based in St. Louis, but he had some national recognition named Oliver Sane. He was an incredible saxophonist.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was Dick Gregory and other people that came through our house every time my father would either promote a show or if he was emceeing a show, the artists would come over for breakfast or for dinner or for late night dinner, that sort of thing, and we had a chance to meet some wonderful
back
people.
then, that's when like radio was like,
Oh, yeah.
everybody knew the guys they needed to know in those towns, and they were like friends with them,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And they would hang out, and it was just a whole community, right?
Absolutely. It was just wonderful. People from, the blues genre, jazz, gospel, R&B.
Yeah.
We met a lot of wonderful people.
So what kind of inspiration did you draw from that? I mean, you're young, you're starting to sing, you decided you're going to go into the jazz route, and like there's just, your father's the massive resource, and then you have all these people around you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, absolutely. We grew up in a very, musical home. I was the one that pursued it. I had my other brothers and sisters. They had some talent, in different areas, but I was the one that continued. Of course, I grew up in church, singing in church.
Yep.
And that whole experience, now, which then wasn't intentional, but today the church is very intentional in producing artists.
Right.
So yeah, that's how it all got started.
Right.
And high school and college. I graduated from Spelman College, which is HBCU.
Okay.
And I had a chance to really meet a lot of phenomenal people going to that school and had phenomenal instructors as well.
Who were some of the instructors there that
Well,
really
everybody
influenced
knows
you?
that Dr. Roland Allison, who was the choral director there,
Okay.
he was just a character, but very much so a wonderful composer and director, and he had an impact on all of our lives, those who were in the
Did
Glee
he have
Club.
Did he have like a way of like telling you how it is or how it should be?
Oh yes, he did, and he didn't beat around the bush about telling you.
Isn't that important though? I know as a musician myself, it was always not fun, but it was always the best feedback when somebody just didn't mess around. Just said,
Absolutely.
Look, man.
I was blessed to have him. I work with some wonderful directors because I do theater as well. So I had people may not believe this, but we had directors that would actually throw a shoe at you.
Oh, really?
That's why I said I have some stories to tell you. If you didn't get, if you were still fumbling over those lines that you should have had,
Yeah.
they would actually throw a book at you, throw the script at you. It was like, I won't call any names.
Probably happened once, right? Oh, maybe more than once.
Yeah.
So you're in college. Are you starting to play with jazz groups now? Or are you
Absolutely
playing
not.
gigs?
Jazz did not come until I was pretty much in my late 20s.
Okay.
As I said, when I had to have the operation on my vocal cords, I was singing gospel music. I was going to be the next Aretha Franklin in gospel.
Yeah.
Then after, the doctor said, well, you might want to, just kind of lay off the gospel a little bit. But
Is it because it was like a deeper sound?
Well, what I discovered was that it didn't matter what type of music I was singing. If you're not singing correct, then any music is going to work against your vocal cords.
Yeah.
And so I really am an advocate, in talking to young singers and, stressing about, how you have to keep, drinking water and breathing from your diaphragm and, and making sure you're hydrated and all of that, because I would just sing, and my throat would probably be dry, but I would still sing, on my vocal cords like that. So I developed vocal polyps.
Oh, okay.
So after I had that surgery, in my mind, I thought it was the genre of music, but it was the way that I was singing. And so that's how I, just sort of mistakenly decided I'm going to be a jazz singer and pursued it ever since. So it was in my late 20s that I decided to do jazz.
Shouldn't you should be able, if you're a well-trained vocalist and you're using let's say you're using your instrument properly, you should be able to sing for long periods of time, any style of music.
Absolutely.
Without blowing your voice out, right?
That is correct,
Yeah.
but I wasn't doing that.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't until I got to college that I even had my first vocal lesson.
Really?
Yes, because I was, singing in the church and
Sure.
singing all over town and everything, and
Could you read music at that point, but not?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And still can't.
You can fake it though.
I look at it and I fake it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let me see.
Yeah,
what
that's
that
right.
is.
And I tell my musical director, no, at measure 7, you did this.
So you're in college and you start singing jazz then?
Nope.
No, after college.
Yeah.
After college.
After
Okay, so
college.
how did that happen? What did you? So you decided now that after your
Well, after
operation,
my
and all that?
surgery, well, my dad had such a huge library
Right.
of jazz albums. I pulled out Irene Reed, Sarah Vaughan, Carmen McRae, Nancy Wilson, Betty Carter. I pulled out Doris Day. What's the woman that Peggy Lee?
Peggy Lee, sure.
I had all of these, and I listened to each one. Betty Carter was too difficult. Sarah Vaughan was too difficult. Carmen McRae was right in the pocket because her voice was low, and I was like, this I'm going to listen to. Nancy was too sweet, and, and it goes on. And Doris, and of course I love, Peggy and Doris and all. But Carmen spoke to me. And so I listened a lot, and that is how I learned the songs. That's how I learned my phrasing.
Yeah.
It was through Carmen McRae.
Did you listen to instrumentalists too? Because as a vocalist, I would imagine listening to those horn players play the melodies.
I'm
right?
glad you asked that question. Interesting enough, I did not. I was so solely on the song, the words, making sure that I sung the song the way Carmen did, or whatever the case may be. It wasn't until early on, before I had a chance to work with Wynton Marsalis, that I met him in Atlanta. I was volunteering behind stage to do United Negro College Fund marathon, and there was like Bill Cosby and Patti LaBelle and everybody, there was who's who that were performing.
Yeah.
And I was like the gopher for these people and everything. And I just so happened, was able to converse with Wynton Marsalis. And it was there that he said to me, you have to learn the language of jazz. Had no idea what he was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You got to learn the language of jazz. And he said to me at the time, listen to Louis Armstrong, which made absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm taking it all in, I'm putting it in my back pocket. I never will forget one night I was laying down and I had the PBS station on. And I was asleep, but it was like I could hear Louis Armstrong, right, going in and out. And I heard Louis Armstrong singing this song with Barbara Streisand. And he's singing, doing everything that he's doing. And it hit me. And I thought, that's the language of jazz. Then I could listen to the instruments and hear the language that they spoke.
Yeah.
So, I'm a late bloomer in this stuff, but that's okay. That's when I discovered the language of jazz. Then that's when I can hear the words, the music, the rhythms, what it's saying, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you actually were able to play with Wynton down the road. So you were a professional musician at that point, and he came into St. Louis. Is that how it worked out? And you ended up playing with... Did you remind him of that story?
I did. And he said, it sounded like something I would say. He couldn't remember exactly, he said, but it sounds like something that I would say.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to work with the orchestra twice in St. Louis. So,
wow.
That was exciting.
So before we get to that far along here, so you start playing around St. Louis? Is that
I did. I after my graduation from Spelman, I stayed in Atlanta, and that's where my theater career really took off.
Okay.
So I did more theater than I did
Does Atlanta have a real good theater program down there?
Atlanta, yes, theater mecca.
Really?
And really more so now that Tyler Perry and different ones are there, So it's really
I know their music scene is blowing up down there hugely. In
everything.
All the genres.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
But at the time, for me, the theater world, with Just Us Theater and Jamandi Theater and, of course, the Alliance Theater, those were the theaters, that I was blessed to play at and work with the wonderful directors, that I work with, even the ones that threw the scripts, So, but it was exciting, and the training that you got, some of that is not there anymore. I'm not saying you have to, throw a script at a kid, but some of that type of training that we received then, kids are not getting that so much today, know. So that's why I'm such an advocate for when I see young people, giving back, what I got, because kids are not learning to go in here, to get, the song out, to get, the whatever, part, the script out, everything. You're not getting in here.
Yeah.
Everything is just sort of, right here. And so I encourage young people to, go back and see how this relates to your life, or someone that may be dealing with these things. It's kind of hard to sing about something that you've never experienced.
We'll jump here. How did you end up in St. Louis then from Atlanta? You just went back home? Is that...
Yeah.
Okay.
I went back home. I stayed in St. Louis probably too long. But, all of the experiences that I received were great. I started my family. I have 2 beautiful children. As a matter of fact, my son is at Morehouse College, and my daughter is a ballerina with Charlotte Ballet Company. And so I raised my children. Unfortunately, I became a single mom. And so that was, one of the hardest things, to do.
Juggling everything, right?
Yeah, juggling everything. Yeah. So I unfortunately, tragically lost a sibling. And my sister Patrice was the one who pretty much was the mother to my children when I was gone.
Okay.
So when things happened the way that they did, it was just clear to me that I had to stop traveling, and I really had to, put on my mommy hat, 24/7.
Yeah.
And I don't regret that, you know. And so that's,
You have to do that.
Yeah.
That's life.
You do.
Right? That's life.
So now it's my turn, and I've moved to Chicago, and I don't eat ketchup on my hot dogs anymore.
Thank God. Thank God.
Hallelujah.
So now you're going to be at Winter's Jazz Club, and you're going to be there on Friday and Saturday, March 16th and 17th. Now you brought up a couple of the names, but you have 2 different horn players and 2 different saxophone players or guitar players, I'll get it straight. Let me just read it off because you're going to want to see this. Obviously, all the information's at wintersjazzclub.com, 7:30 and 9:30 p.m. shows Friday and Saturday. But your bass group is going to be Marlene Rosenberg on bass, Charles Rick Heath on the drums.
Yes.
And why don't we talk a little bit about your piano player?
Well, my musical director / pianist is Darren Pops Jackson. Now, we're calling him Pops, but he's only like about 32 years old.
I know, right?
He is one of the youngest professors at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, Illinois, music department.
Okay.
And so, as a matter of fact, his protege, Reggie Thomas, nicknamed him and gave him that name. So, he's an old spirit. He really is.
Yeah.
He's a young man with an old spirit. So he will be musical director and pianist for that night. And then...
You've got Friday and Saturday night. You've got Eric Schneider.
Yes!
The great Eric Schneider on saxophone. And I know, Eric, you like me saying that. The great Eric Schneider on saxophone.
The great Eric Schneider.
And Andy Brown on guitar.
Andy
Dynamite.
Brown, yes, who I had a chance to work with as a result of another singer, being ill. So I, just...
Well, you subbed for Paul Marinaro on New
did.
Year's Eve, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
we all know Paul Marinaro.
Thank you, Paul. I love you. We haven't met yet, but God bless you.
He's getting much better, too, by the way,
Yeah.
folks. Much better.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday, you have Henry Johnson on guitar
I have
and
Henry,
Leonard
that's right.
Simpson
And
on
Leonard
sax.
Simpson on sax, yeah.
Now, Henry's dynamite. I mean,
Yes.
Henry's one of the guys that have toured with everybody in
Yes,
the world, and
yes.
we're lucky enough to have him here in Chicago. But Leonard's a younger sax player,
Yeah.
and he's going to be hitting the stage with you,
Yes,
too. So two
yes.
nights, you have a couple of different lineups.
Yeah.
All of them are going to be killing.
Yeah, but we're doing a tribute to Nancy Wilson. So the music, will all be the same. And boy, we are doing some incredible tunes. We're doing some tunes that maybe some people didn't know that Nancy
Right.
did. And of course, we're doing all of her, wonderful,
Absolutely.
Guess Who I Saw Today.
Well,
all that.
and you know this, but I hope all these other people know this. Henry Johnson obviously toured and recorded with Nancy Wilson
Yes.
for years. So
Years.
it is going to be on fire, I would
Yes,
imagine.
it is.
Friday and Saturday night. Just got back at the time of this taping, like yesterday, I think.
Yes.
From your debut at Dizzy's Jazz Club right there in
Yes.
Lincoln Center.
Oh, incredible. That was, there's a wonderful couple in St. Louis, David and Thelma Stewart, and they were receiving the Ed Bradley Award back in April of last year, I believe it was.
Okay.
I was blessed to be able to perform for the reception for them because they're from St. Louis, and they asked if, they wanted me to,
Yeah.
And as a result, the powers that be and Dizzy's heard me and so forth. And of course, I'm going to say, well, can you get me on the calendar? And lo and behold, I got a wonderful email from Georgina Favor and saying that they wanted to book me in March. And
Dynamite.
man, and it was incredible.
We also talked before this, you have a foundation too, and I wanted to make sure we mention that because it's really important.
Sure.
So why don't you tell everybody
Well,
about that?
I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer. I was touring in Singapore in like 96 and part of 97.
Okay.
And my mother was diagnosed in 1997. And so I wanted to see what I could do to, how my mother could hear me sing for, what the doctors were saying would be her last time to hear me sing.
Yeah.
So I came up with a concert for Mother's Day. And so every year, this is our 22nd year, Mike, we do a concert for Mother's Day, and now we do a fall concert that is strictly for raising awareness and fundraising for pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was. A lot of people had not heard of it. It's still somewhat on the back burner, but it's because we have lost a lot of celebrities to this disease, and I guess you can say, it was a blessing because it was through their celebrity notoriety that people start
Right.
paying attention to the disease.
Right.
And so we're still fighting that battle. We're still creating as much awareness as we can. and people can go to the MildredTimesFoundation.org.
Okay.
And yeah, we thank you for allowing me to mention that.
Oh, for sure, and we'll talk more as we get closer to the
Yeah.
Mother's Day.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone needs to head over to Winters. Red Alert.
Please.
Friday and Saturday night. Go see Scott. Winters is awesome. I always like to let everybody know. It's right on the corner, essentially, of McClurg and Illinois. It's around back, right on the Ogden Slip. The best place to park over there is you do a Spot Hero or a Park Whiz. And you can usually get parking for about $10, $15 if you go through that app. So that's always my tip,
Yeah,
because that's a
good.
lot of times that's what makes people
Absolutely.
make a decision.
Yeah, it
So it's
really is.
Super simple.
Yeah.
Celebrate St. Patrick's Day at Winters. What better way?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, Denise, thanks for being on the show.
you,
It was a
Mike.
pleasure.
Yes.
It's great having you on. And of course, if she and I don't see you somewhere this weekend, hopefully we will see you somewhere out on the scene.